right. I think we're okay. Everything seems to be clocking well on this side. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. Looking forward to spending another Saturday looking at a script with you
Uh,
and
y-
breaking it down.
yeah, likewise, because we got one with some meta commentary this
Oh
week.
yeah, Hollywood loves itself some Hollywood.
Especially the ones that don't even know how the industry works. They really love it.
Even someone who's been around allegedly for years.
Yes, yeah. Well, technically a contemporary of mine to a degree. Um, okay, yeah. So it looks like it looks like we're in 5 by 5. So thank you everyone for that. Um, yeah, it's been a spell since we've had you on for the live show, Chad. But I'm happy to have you back again, uh, especially for this one because it's
Yeah, this is a very interesting one.
it is. So let's not let the audience wait any longer. Let's get right into it. Welcome to Scripts on Saturdays, the only screenplay review show on the interwebs, discussing scripts both professional and amateur, circulating around Hollywood, giving you, the TV and movie-going audience, a behind-the-scenes and inside track on what writers are pushing and what producers are buying. I'm your host, the Script Doctor, and joining me this week, returning champion, Lil Chad. Glad to have you back, sir.
I appreciate it. We had a real winner this week. It's going to be good stuff. A lot of good things to go over here.
Yes. Well, so this week's script finished 33rd place on the 2024 blacklist with 14 votes. It's written by Elyse Hollander, who her latest writing credit is Freakier Friday. So we'll see what her writing level is here. Title of the screenplay is called Turnaround. And the logline is as follows. In a cutthroat Hollywood, a struggling actor and his ruthless agent cover up a star's deadly scandal, spiraling into betrayal, murder, and haunting guilt. Little Chad, please share with us the synopsis of
The
this
yeah,
story.
the synopsis goes as follows. After beloved movie star Tom Adair is found dead, the outpouring of grief and sympathy quickly elevates his best friend, Alec Donovan, to movie star status. Now Alec must contend with his newfound fame and success and the fact that he and his agent girlfriend, Karen Piper, secretly murdered Tom and are haunted by his vengeful ghost.
Yes. Now, a fun fact of this, the synopsis that Chad just read was actually the official log line that was pitched with this script, which is not a log line, it's a synopsis.
Yeah.
And I put together the log line for this one because a log line needs to be short, doesn't have to have character names, has to give you a basic inciting incident or at least the through line of such, and ideally leave you with wanting to look more. So so that's our first point of interest in this one. Um, our second one is that this screenplay is technically an adaptation of the play Macbeth by William Shakespeare.
Yeah, the play that shall not be named when performing it.
Yes, yes. If you're in a theater and you utter the name Macbeth instead of calling it the Scottish play, yes, that there is a curse on the production.
Well,
Fortunately,
since
neither of
they
us are in a theater right now, so we're
yeah,
okay.
since they added it into the script on the scrum, it is slightly accursed. Um, all right. So it opens up really interesting. We get we open the script without if you didn't know the log line and the synopsis,
Hmm.
you get an opening that is very Lynchian,
Hmm.
where it's on a random highway with an accident late at night and a down on his luck. What we find out and get from this conversation, former almost star
Yes. Uh,
runs into random stoners and the people who are described as dingbat. It's, it
yeah,
is
like this has it has a little echo of Mulholland Drive.
yeah, and or it's got somebody like this brief bit is somebody trying to channel like Lynch level weird slash relevant slash meaningful.
Hmm.
Lynch for people who I know Lynch is an acquired taste.
Yes. but a
I, for
very
one,
satisfying one when you
yeah.
figure out what it is.
On hindsight, I still feel like, and this is gonna maybe sound weird to people, like the 1984 Dune
Hmm.
is still the most satisfying like feature length Dune experience I've had,
Yes.
where the story seems complete from start to finish, and I don't have any qualms with the characters as given. It makes its changes from the book, but it's very Lynch too.
Hmm.
Lynch also did he did like was it Nash no Blue Velvet
Yep, he did Blue Velvet,
with
famous Eraserhead.
oh yeah, I did that when I watched that in film class for the first time when I was in college. I was like, what the F did I just see? Like, and then the professor's like, you need to explain it, and I was like, this is before you could just look things up on the internet. Like, I was like, how do I don't even know how to attempt to explain this at all. Like, and we struggled through it as a class, but it was fun and it was very good as a learning experience on film. Then Lynch is as a filmmaker did all sorts of cool stuff. Like he's somebody who could do Dune. He could go to he could do The Elephant Man.
Hmm.
Then he'll jump and do Blue Velvet, which is crazy. He'll do Twin Peaks, which is crazy. Then he'll do The Straight Story, which is about a dude just driving his lawnmower.
Yep.
And it's a completely wholesome, lovely film. And then he'll turn around and do was it Mulholland Drive,
Yep, Mulholland Drive, and
which is a batshit crazy movie.
yep.
It's Lynch. I love Lynch, and that he never felt the need to explain anything to anyone. But yeah, so this person writing this script wants to give a very Lynch vibe the way it's described and laid out.
Hmm.
And I was actually just when I first read this bit, I was like, okay, it's gonna be like it's a Hollywood movie, but if we're going for like if it's based on Macbeth and we're gonna go like a Lynch route, that could be cool. Let's see where they go.
Yep.
And it goes nowhere and means nothing.
Yeah. Well, I think it takes it. This is very much a superficial take on not just Macbeth, but also Lynch style films, and then other movies that try to peek behind the curtains of what Hollywood is, but done so in a way that is it's what everybody assumes Hollywood is, but it's actually not really how it works. It's actually working in Hollywood is a lot more sad than I mean, it can be fun once you actually get onto a production and you're going through the whole process and the premiere and everything, but everything around that is really really sad because it's all schmoozing, trying to get financing for something. Everybody has no confidence in anyone, and they're all just kind of pretending, putting on a strong face to try and get something done. And this is how, I mean, it's a very unsettling, stress inducing environment. And yet, when you do hit that victory of getting your television show or your movie made, it's all worth it because it tastes that much better, sort of thing.
I will say I did appreciate the one of the running themes is that actors are completely unsatisfied whatever level of
Whatever level they attain.
fame
Yep.
they're at. Yeah, which I think there's a little bit of truth to that. They want to, like we have our lead who we just were introduced to through the car accident is named Alec.
Hmm.
And he was a up and coming star who co-starred with Tom Adair in their first big movie together that apparently co-wrote.
Yeah, my understanding is that they
Shades,
co-wrote it. Yeah,
yeah, shades of Affleck and
Matt Damon.
Damon.
Hmm.
Except instead of both of them taking off, Tom Adair kind of turned into Tom Cruise, and Alec became the artsy indie
Paul Giamatti of sorts.
Like I'm only interested in what I would compare him to Ed Norton. He seems like he'd
Yeah.
be very difficult. Where Edward Norton is notoriously difficult to work with because he's very method and committed to his art and wanting to X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And the way Alec is written strikes me as someone very much like that, and where he wanted to do quote unquote meaningful work
Yes, he
instead
wanted.
of just being commercial.
Well, I mean, that's one of the other subplots of this film is it's commercial versus art, which is something that actually is a conversation that still happens to this day. It's like, do you want a movie that just entertains you, or do you want a movie that inspires you, or do you want a show that entertains you, or do you want a show that inspires you? Um, there's a blurred line between the stories that we cherish versus the ones that are put out quickly. They do the entertainment aspect, but they're soon forgotten. And
Which is such a BS thing because
mhm,
commercial movie making can be meaningful art. And
exactly,
the idea, like, you look at a movie and it's become cliche, but something like, say, Jurassic Park.
great movie.
Jurassic Park did more to inform the general public about the dangers of genetic manipulation than any paper or article in Time magazine ever did.
Yeah,
It's become a joke, right? Like, I know me and my friends maybe we're movie people, but like, you see a story about any like Dolly the sheep or something.
hmm
One of the first things one of us would say is spared no expense, right? Like it's gonna end badly. You know, it's or well, no, John, Dolly the sheep didn't eat the tours. Like, so
well,
or
not
or
yet.
even like yeah, so you've got something like Jurassic Park, which is a clearly 100% commercial summer event movie, but it still makes you think about ideas like before one of the great counterpoint lines ever written before you were so obsessed to figure out if you could, you never stopped to think if you should.
Right.
and and it was delivered so well by Goldblum. Commercial movie making can be impactful, stand the test of time. You go back to the 50s when we did big epic movies and that's what got nominated. I look at a movie like The Quiet Man
hmm
by John Ford or The Searchers, John Ford again, where these were fully commercial, starred John Wayne, biggest movie star in the world. And they had so much more going on, but they were still commercial movies that made a lot of money and were very successful. I mean, The Searchers turned is probably the greatest western ever made, has used John Wayne as an icon purposefully to tell even more of the story with his character of Ethan, where with him hunting down the people that murdered his family,
hmm
but at this and not having any sympathy even when they found one of them alive, because it turned on John Wayne, everything you knew about John Wayne. It said so much with the door. I mean, it's gone. People have gone over that for a million years. But the idea, like this art and this script, so it does the same insulting thing, which is you like the idea that you can't have anything meaningful within a commercial. I hate that idea. I reject it. I think commercial movies that actually make money and reach an audience
hmm
are more important for spreading a message. I said this on my own show on Ascendant Art. I disagree with probably a lot of the politics of Ryan Coogler,
Yeah.
but I see a movie like Sinners, and he is so adept at weaving a coherent and entertaining story where he can get his messages in without having to beat you over the head with it. And I said this, I'm really glad that Hollywood is not investing in people like Coogler because as someone who disagrees with his politics, if we had more of him making commercially viable, entertaining movies that also spoke his message eloquently in a subtle way where it reaches you more effectively, Hollywood would be much better off with trying to get their messages out.
Well, some of them would. I mean, one of the things that I noticed from this script is that while there is the meta commentary of like you can be commercial or you could be art, right now, especially in Hollywood, they don't see the fact that commercial and art can actually work together, and they made them so distinct from each other that
Yeah, I
they
mean,
become so incompatible. Because to your point, like the Searchers, heck, even the classic True Grit, those movies were commercial, but they were commercial because not only were they were able to take a story of meaning and depth and execute it in a way that was accessible to the broadest audience demographic. And I mean, it did work to its advantage for that audience at that time because you had a culture of people that were a bit more well read than what we have today, compared to, say, the social media, the TikTok, the YouTube, like, shorts and all the, like, the quick interactive, serotonin inducing, reflexive video and content, where studios look at that as, oh, this is what we need in regards to entertaining, just get in and out, get their money, get out. And they forget the fact that when you make a movie or a television show, it is a product that is scalable and can be resold over and over and over again to new audiences every generation, therefore making it a very reliable source of income. But I would argue that even in the last like 15 years, the movies that were of a cultural impact that kind of were commercial and also had that artistic expression are so few and far between. It's quite sad, because we have Sinners that came out this year, which I enjoyed quite a bit. I did think it could have been cut back a little bit. But then on the opposite side, you also had The Working Man with Jason Statham. But nobody's talking about that movie anymore. People are still talking about Sinners, and I'm sorry to say, in about 3 or 4 years, people will probably still be talking about Sinners, and nobody will be talking about Working Man. Because Working Man, it is very much entertainment on the commercial side of things without trying to do anything a little bit deeper. There's no real voice or expressive aspect to that movie in comparison to something like Sinners.
Yeah, and within Hollywood, there used to be, and when I say used to, I would say probably from the late 80s through about the mid O's, there was a very well struck balance within Hollywood where the really artsy, like meaning, like that kind of movie was it was had that indie tag and was usually budgeted as such. So the Hollywood as a rule wasn't spending a ton of money on these movies, and they were the ones that were free to explore very aggressively counterculture ideas or whatever. On
Yeah,
the other hand, you had commercial big tent pole movies where successful directors and everybody were given the budgets, make entertainment, and they could when you have the good ones, they can weave a lot of story and meaningful impact culturally to it. And then there was the mid movie, right? This is the bread and butter that kept theaters alive.
right.
The mid movie that would be budgeted in the 20 to $40 million range, that would open and could usually make final gross domestic around 80 to 90, and then home video and ancillary market would make it a very profitable enterprise for the production companies.
Oh,
And
yep.
those movies, by and large, didn't go too out there with what they were doing. Those mid movies, would sometimes they would strike on maybe a topic of the day, but they wouldn't do it to, like, something like Philadelphia comes to mind.
Right.
They got Tom Hanks and Antonio Banderas, very, very safe people to be representative of the gay community. They didn't really linger on any too much of the things that wouldn't have made it, commercially viable. And in the end, they sold it really as more. When you look at something like Philadelphia, as groundbreaking as that movie may be considered, it was really just a David and Goliath story about a man standing up to the system.
Yes, especially
And
a system that was that had an assumption on information that didn't meet the facts at hand.
yeah, which is a very effective way that's how you sell it to the general public, right?
Yeah.
Like make it, we the American people, general public, I would say human race as a whole generally
Hmm.
has a built-in support of the underdog. We when we see someone's go all the way back to the Bible with David versus Goliath. Like we said, you're inherently rooting for the person who seems to stand no chance but stands up anyway.
It's not just that they stand no chance; it's that there's something inherently good about them and what they're trying to do, and you feel compelled to want them to succeed. Um, because they're, I mean, one part of the underdog is that you're creating a situation or establishing a setting where the protagonist is morally in the right, but the world itself that rejects that moral, and he's
Yep.
got to prove that that moral is correct and the way to go. And it's an uphill battle. It's almost like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill. Um, but if you do it well, you have him eventually put that rock up on the top, and he can relax for a moment, and that character is achieved. And those aspects of writing, like it's the way of basically saying, yeah, this is a fun gimmick. It's a concept that a lot of people can grasp, but you want to have a resonating effect afterwards, because the best movie you can have is one where as soon as you walk out of the theater, you want to go back in and watch it, buy a ticket and watch it again. Like
Yep.
every great writer, every great filmmaker, whether it's actor, director, producer, what have you, that is their sweet spot. Like that's what they want. They want, as soon as an audience finishes watching it, they want to have them rush out to the ticket booth, get another ticket, go back in, see the next showing. And you can do that in a variety of ways. You can do that by hitting the lowest common denominator for like action adventure, or even a romantic comedy, or a thriller, or what have you. Or you could put in the effort of the stories that do last the test of time. For instance, such as a Macbeth, that this story is using as a spine. And if you understand what the themes are in that story, and if you understand how the characters interact with each other and the motivations, and you frame it all in a way that makes it digestible, fun, maybe stimulate some questions in the audience's mind so that they start thinking about the behaviors of each of the characters and how they're affecting the world in itself, that's your peak engagement level. And that's something that in today, in 2025, you have that's where you have the division, where you have someone's like, yeah, I want to make a really accessible movie with a lot of fun themes, and I want these characters to go through this really compelling journey, and the studios be like, well, that's high art. And then they're like, just give us something with guns, boobs, blood, gore, and a couple of fight scenes. And you're like, well, that's what they think commercial is. But I would say that's not commercial, that's disposable. And which is basically have been conflated over the last generation, sadly.
Yeah, and turning back to our script this week, when I mean, we've both read the whole thing, so I can tell you just my opinion. There is nobody likable in this script because everybody does really bad things with no guilt about doing the bad things. And and then now we do have Alec and Karen, and
Yeah, Karen, yeah.
Karen, like who do have guilt, but it's weird guilt and it's weirdly laid out. And anyway, so I just don't see how this would be having, like, you need to have somebody you can root for, even if they're bad, have them do something so that you can latch on to like rooting for that character.
Well, I mean, that was
Um,
part of the aspect of Macbeth, is that in the play, if memory serves, Macbeth, he's a guy that actually has a good soul, and it's his wife that manipulates him, and by the time he realizes what's happened, it's too late.
yeah, and if I it's been a while, but I also believe that Macbeth was effectively a war hero,
Hmm.
where he, through his exploits on the battlefield, saved and won numerous battles for Scotland. And it was his wife who manipulated him into believing that he should be king over the royal family that was in place.
Yes.
because of how well he had been doing all these other things. In this case, we immediately after this, the random car accident that it serves no meaningful purpose for anything later in the script aside from explaining a crack in a windshield. We cut to the movie set of um, Caesar is Dead, which is a terrible title.
Yeah.
Which is funny because now we're doing, the if you want to go back to a Shakespeare element, the play within the play, right? We're
Yep.
doing the movies that's filming within the movie that is based on another William Shakespeare play. When this one is based on Macbeth, they're doing a modern adaptation
Of Julius Caesar. Yeah.
period wise of Julius Caesar, even referred to, and this made me almost drop my tablet, a reboot of Julius Caesar. I was like, you can't no, you didn't reboot Julius Caesar. Like,
Yeah. Like
and
this is the part where I'm like, okay, she's swinging for the fences for satire.
yeah, and we get and this whole little section, by the way, that when we're visiting this set, we are introduced to what seems like numerous stand-ins for Hollywood elite. German director named Hans.
Yeah.
We get numerous producers described. We get a French female lead named Claudette. I believe, and this is allegedly, I would imagine, this is supposed to be set in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it's set up in the descriptive text that this is peak
Yeah.
2004, and we
Yeah.
follow this story for about a year.
Yeah.
Um, so
So yeah,
2004,
so
2005.
so we get lots of mentions of Blackberries and BlackBerry messaging, and and tongue-in-cheek references to producers that appear to be either Scott Rudin stand-ins, in my opinion,
Mhm.
or Jerry Bruckheimer stand-ins.
Jerry Bruckheimer stand-ins, Joel Silver.
Yeah, and we get an argument which is hilarious from the. So this is where we're introduced to Tom Adair, who is the other actor that we had just heard of, whose career went stratospheric after that initial movie that Alec was in.
Called Catching Hell.
Yeah, called Catching Hell. Um, and Tom is described as basically the most charismatic, beautiful man you'll ever see. I mean, I'm not sure who in Hollywood they could cast to live up to this description, or
Hmm.
who would want who's gonna want to be burdened with being this dude. It's not gonna be good for your career, right? Um, so yeah, so he's having an argument with the director about not saying "et tu, Brute" in Latin,
Yeah.
where they make it English, but "you, Brutus." Um, and he's trying to be like, well, no one else said it this way. And it's just like,
Well, he says Olivia didn't say it this way, and then he goes in. Kevin Costner did, and it's like Kevin Costner never played this. Well, he wouldn't have said it this way, and I mean, what's a little bit
what's
tragic.
weird is that he would reference Olivier.
Hmm.
Like, my thought would be, if you're, because this is 2004, Olivier was a deep pull even then.
Hmm.
So if he knows like Olivier playing Macbeth or Caesar, what? How is he gonna, like? He's not that. That would mean he's probably not going to be getting confused that Kevin Costner played Julius Caesar. I mean, it was a weird kind of juxtaposition. Like, to me, if you're pulling if you're like a deep film person, to have a respect for Laurence Olivier as allegedly the greatest actor of the 20th century,
Hmm.
you're not gonna like be forgetting other people. Like, that means you're well versed in acting. Because Olivier by 2004 wasn't anything you needed to pay homage to anymore. He'd been gone for a long time.
He had been, but I mean, even among actors, not so much the younger generation, but like people in my generation and definitely older, they still revere Olivier to this day. But I mean, it's not. It feels. I doubt. I just feel it's disingenuous that a character like Tom would actually care about Olivier, because he is described as the sellout. He's the guy that took every job he could, and he never really cared about the acting part. He was always just brought in to, you know, be
Sell
the
tickets.
handsome leading man to sell tickets. Um, and then I'm trying to think of like, okay, so who is the king in Macbeth that Macbeth kills was Duncan, I think, and
Yes.
he was a noble guy.
Hmm.
Uh, Tom here is definitely not a noble guy.
That's a big change too. Like,
Yeah, like I appreciate the effort of like I want to like the writer saying I want to distinguish this enough so that it's not a direct one to one, but at the same time it's like okay, so you've given us a little bit of a contradiction, which is a little bit fine, but I want to get a little bit deeper than that, which is we have this character named Tom who his career took off from catching hell along with Alec, but he was able to secure higher profile, kind of very commercial, run of the mill films that have turned him into a movie star. And now he's doing something that is ostensibly, on the surface, supposed to be artistic, but it is a reboot of Julius Caesar.
so
And
yeah, it reminds me of like when Mel Gibson did Hamlet. Like, I mean,
yeah,
maybe, except he did that a little more. He got, I think, Zeffirelli, right, to direct that one.
yeah, or it's like Kenneth Branagh, right, who likes to
Oh,
direct and star in Shakespeare adaptations.
which were, I mean, that was man. People forget that was like he revolutionized doing Shakespeare when
Yeah,
he did with Henry V, with actually having like the modern chorus speaking, to you as the audience.
yeah, that it took him a while to actually earn that up because have you ever seen his version of Othello?
No, oh, the one with Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes.
That was after.
That was after? I thought that was before.
Nope, that was after.
That
Henry
was.
V was like 1988 or 80.
Oh yeah, it had to have been. Yeah.
So I believe the order he did Henry V, then I believe he did Much Ado About Nothing,
Nothing.
come with the full street cred that he had gotten off Henry V, and everybody in Hollywood to show up for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And Othello was mid 90s when he was kind of waning just a little bit. If
Yeah.
I'm
That
if I'm
think.
remembering dates right.
Yeah, like I'm struggling on my end here as well because I'm now trying to remember old Shakespeare,
Yeah,
which I haven't read in a long time, and
Othello
then
was 95.
Othello
Yeah,
was
so
95. Okay, so that's in that decade run of his self-starring directing Shakespeare plays.
yep. Which is why it was such a brilliant piece of casting when they did Harry Potter and had him in as Shackleroy, whatever his name was.
Right.
No, what was his name?
Oh, you're
The
asking the
the
wrong person.
self-serving, self-promoting wizard.
Right.
Which I was like, that's such a because Harry Potter was made like so in touch with like the British acting community. It was such a like meta commentary to put Brana into that spot. But anyway,
Anyway,
yeah.
um,
So we're on set. We're introduced to Tom Adair, who is no way noble. He is not a noble person.
no.
Either like the reason Macbeth is a tragedy is like he took out a good king to put himself in place, and then things implode.
Right.
In this case, we're on set. Our first introduction to Tom Adair is being an obnoxious schmuck, arguing about and not remembering who played Julius Caesar in past incarnations, and then we get interrupted with the co-star, the man who's playing Brutus, not being on set. He goes by the name of Cali, short for California, which is, I mean,
Like,
you're
I mean that it's just absurd because you don't like. There's not really any actors that are named after states that are men. Like, there's of course the Dakotas, Dakota Fanning, Dakota Johnson, and so forth. It it just really kind of makes me question. Well, what is the actual tone of the screenplay if we got a guy named Callie for California Michaels, or yeah, it's California Michaels is his name, I think.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. Like this screenplay jumps around within this first act. We open up with something that's very Lynchian,
Mm-hmm.
we move into the set piece where it's on set and it becomes very absurdist, almost to the point of I thought it was around reminded me a lot um the Raising Arizona, the
Oh, the Coen brothers. Oh
Coen
no, or the
brothers,
Fairley
like
brothers. Yeah.
yeah, where they're doing their outlandish kind of like hyper reality joking kind
Hmm.
of stuff, because they did the movie Hail Caesar, so it had that. This part had that vibe where it's within this the Hollywood community, but it's mocking it. But we moved off that really fast to just getting into a more dramatic, like thriller almost. It's completely schizophrenic in its tone, and it's jarring as you're reading it because you want to be able to know like what kind of genre you're in.
Hmm.
And if you're gonna genre hop and be more meta and things like that, you've got to be, I don't want to say, you've got to do a much better job writing it to be able to pull that off. Like
Yeah,
if
because
you're genre hopping at that pace, you've got to be very wary and very planned out on how you're doing it.
well, for starters, it's almost impossible to genre hop at that pace because what you have to do is from the first shot or first scene in your script, you have to establish the tone in a broad enough sense that you can get away with that. And even after the car accident in the first few pages, and then Alec kind of wandering to the nearby mansion off the road and meeting a bunch of stoner guys inside talking about how well, one of them thinks he's a great actor, and the other three are kind of disappointed but appreciate him. Uh, they it doesn't quite mesh as well. Some of these things you have to kind of do gradually in order for it to go. Like if you were to have Alec, he shows up at the house. You have the guy that's kind of dressed like Jeff Bridges, the dude. From
Yep. From Big
Big
Lebowski.
Lebowski. Thank you. I completely spaced out there for a moment. I
Yep.
apologize. Um, and instead of just giving it like a compelling aspect, like, hey, I was just in a car accident. My phone's not working. BlackBerry's not working. Can I use your phone to report it? You have the guy come. You basically have like a sense of humility. It's like, oh yeah, sure, come on in, and then you build up to, you look really familiar. Where'd I know you from? And he's like, no, nothing. And then he's like, no, wait, and then you build up to that, and then that's where you kind of build up the escalation, and then from that escalation you can start seeding in the absurdities. But this one just kind of hits you with it like a brick, like a brick
Yeah.
across the jaw. Like, holy crap, we're just jumping right in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Coen brothers are I would consider like the gold standard of kind of doing the absurdist hyper reality with Raising Arizona, Hudsucker Proxy. You
Oh
get
yeah, love Hudsucker Proxy.
Fargo
Hmm.
and Big Lebowski, kind of that run.
Hmm.
Hudsucker Proxy is super absurdist, like
I mean, it's all about a
to
hula
the
hoop.
nth degree. It's for kids.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, in my order of like absurdity, it's weird because Raising Arizona is kind of crazy. And like especially, with the biker, manhunter like running around.
Hmm.
And but that's how you need, like, and from the beginning, like the Coen brothers start from the beginning of those movies where they ease you in, and then as you're right from the beginning they start upping the absurdity, like, but you're on the journey with them doing it, like you're being led by the hand to from the very beginning of the movie to accept that you're in a heightened reality situation
Hmm.
for their absurdist. In this place we got a Lynch like intro, then we cut to a very absurdist like movie set with, like, where now Tom Adair dispatches his brother to find California and get him on set because he's late,
Yep.
and they find that he's OD'd
He's OD'd
and is on
on
drugs that they got him.
that they got him by way of the same agent that represents Tom and Alec.
Yep. And so yeah, this, and then from this very brief um set visit, we cut to like Entertainment Tonight, where they do the full exposition dump to
The
tell you,
exposition dump in
yeah,
mourning.
that California is dead, and and this is again showing you the fakeness of the people on set. They
Yes.
cut to like um interview clips of Claudette, the like French actress who didn't want anything to do, who suddenly is very much in mourning and crying. Hans, the director, and then finally Tom Adair, who is
Sheds a single
giving a
tear. Yeah.
doing super self-serving stuff. We have the producer Jerry Schilling, I mean Jerry Bruckheimer.
Jerry Bruckheimer. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
again, as we said, like California or Callie Michaels ODs on bad cocaine, and as a result, um, the production's in chaos. But they do this morning. But this is really laid on thick because the writer's clearly saying California. This is the year California died, and she's talking about the
yeah,
state and but using a character as a proxy. Like okay, this is like I get it, but it's really laid on thick. Like you do not expect you're basically guaranteeing that the audience is not going to be intelligent enough to see the allegory that you're trying to do, so you're just going to hit them over the head with it really strong.
yeah, I don't know if that's when Netflix got founded and or whatever. But yeah, it's and then we cut to the core team of Tom, the producers and the director discussing how they have insurance payments to cover because of this loss through the end of the month,
Mm-hmm.
but then they'll need to start shooting again if they, want to keep this going. But who can we get? And this is supposedly 2004, so they have what seems like a very weird conversation where someone was suggesting a female Brutus,
A female
and
Brutus, and then another
another
person.
person suggested an urban Brutus.
Yes, and
You
then
know,
you have the very conversation. It's like, well, we could get them, but is it really representative of the time? I mean, we don't want to stir the pot here. Like that's a conversation in this script, which is clearly a current day commentary on some very perplexing casting choices that have been made with other historical figures over the
but
years.
what's weird is they have Tom be the one who delivers that line,
Yeah,
and we've already seen Tom to be an obnoxious a-hole. So it's almost again putting those words to come out of his mouth is the script, like you said, California died in 2004,
hmm
is another way for the scriptwriter to say, look, the people who are voicing this silliness, stupid. Um, but they end up settling on the fact that they need to hire
a
a
white guy
young
that's cheap.
a, an age appropriate white male who's cheap. And so, of course, this is where Alec comes back in. They bring him in to play Brutus, and he does a great job. Everybody says he did a good job.
They're
Tom,
shocked to be working with someone that knows how to act. Like
yeah,
that's one of the lines that's uttered in this moment. Yeah.
yeah, and that's all. This is where we get the intro to Karen Piper, who is the agent, the high-powered agent of Tom Adair, and we also find out that she is the agent of Alec Donovan. She apparently started representing them at the same time,
hmm
but she's not returning Alec's calls about work because she's focused on taking care of Tom, who,
Is a
this is one
moneymaker. Yeah.
thing. I'll be honest, this is probably the most accurate thing about Hollywood in this script,
hmm
that the agent would prioritize the money-making client over the, non-commercial viable client.
Well,
So,
yes, actually, the worst agents in town are the ones that actually hit the low hanging fruit. So they'll represent some of the high profile people and they'll put all their resources in there. But the best agents in town like to call themselves kingmakers, where they can take someone that's got a lot of talent but doesn't have a lot of buzz, and they know how to negotiate to get them into the right stuff so that they can become a star. But we've also been living in a world where stars aren't made anymore. People are just slotted into existing characters that are already recognizable to audiences.
yeah, that's the age of the movie stars, unfortunately, seemingly to have passed.
It's in the background right now. It's not the forefront.
But all right, so the weird thing to me is that, all right, so we get the part where, so at the end of the shooting day, Karen's super focused on Tom, blows off Alec, who like actually goes to speak with her on set.
Hmm.
And then our next scene is them having relations
Yeah.
in her beach house. And I guess we get the I don't know if it's made clear here or kind of made clear later that they've actually effectively been together since his first movie,
Yes. Like
which
she,
is years now.
oh, at least a decade.
Yeah.
They've been together for a decade in this relationship. He has his script called, I think, Sure Shot, or I think it's
Yep.
Sure, yeah,
Sure shot.
Sure Shot. That he finished writing, and he's trying to get her feedback on it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I skimmed the coverage," and he's been pushing this script around, and because he's on this new, he's brought into this new film, he's finally got access to some studio heads where he can try and showcase the script. Um, his Karen, his girlfriend agent, is back and forth between flirting with him for how much she kind of likes being with him versus the truth of the matter, which is that he's not at a position where he can be leading man material, where he can be the moneymaker that she needs him to be. So she has to put all of her focus on Tom, and she even like throws a couple of insults about Tom as well. Like, not he's not that. No, he gets butts and seats, but that's all he's really good for, type of thing. Like that's what
Which
the air of
this
the
yeah,
conversation.
and this character is essentially is our Lady Macbeth.
Yes.
Like we've now got the full main crew exposed. Tom as Duncan the King, Alec as Macbeth, and Karen as Lady Macbeth. Except they can't, like, if you compare her to what Lady Macbeth did, I feel like this is another situation where the script doesn't, they're like, oh, the Shakespeare just put it all on the woman.
Mm-hmm.
They're not allowing Karen to be hateful enough and conspiratorial enough to, be the one who actually
Is the
pushed
villain.
Alec in.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, because if anything, she is as much or more demeaning towards Alec in his career as she is to Tom. Like, first
Yes.
she brings up that all Tom can do is put butts in seats, but she also doesn't give a shit about the script that Alec has apparently poured his heart and soul into.
That's right.
So, I mean, so she's not like Lady Macbeth would have been building him up, right?
Lady Macbeth
You
would have
are,
written the script with him
yeah,
to say, this is your magnum opus. This is what
yeah,
catapults you to the stars.
yeah,
Yes.
and Lady Macbeth would be forcing meetings on everybody to try to get this done.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found out is that Karen is not doing anything to career. He lucked into, like, Karen wasn't even in that meeting, so Karen had nothing to do as far as the movie has told us.
Yes.
Karen had nothing to do with getting him the part as Brutus.
Right. Tom did that for him.
Yeah, I mean, if they're making her Lady Macbeth, she should have been whispering in Tom's ear.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Alec would be perfect for this.
Yeah. He would
He's
never.
cheap. We can get him in tomorrow.
And he will not. And he won't upstage you, but he will compliment your talents, like all those types of seductive
Exactly.
things.
Like, that he makes you look better on screen.
Mm-hmm.
He'll hit his marks. He'll know his lines, and you are the star next to him. We know this because it's happened before. He's not going to outshine you. He's perfect, Tom. Let's get him in.
Yeah. That.
But
That
they don't
was
have
missing.
her do that. They
No.
have this meeting of the men choose Alec. So again, we're it's an interesting thing where in the modern take in Hollywood, they wouldn't allow Lady Macbeth to really be the villain she is, but at the same time, by doing that, they're stripping her of the power and agency she had in manipulating things to get what she wanted.
Right. And there's
Or
only
like,
one. Yeah. There's only one point where she actually crosses the line, and then she gets reeled back, and we're actually pretty close to that point because.
yeah, because so she does arrange a meeting with the producer of this movie, so that he can at least just pitch it.
Yes, and the script has actually been read by some story analysts, and while he's waiting for his, like, he goes in with his crappy car, which of course Karen says, get your windshield fixed, you look like you're poor. And he can't afford it, so he doesn't get it fixed. He goes into his car. The security guard's like, "Oh yeah, you're in this section of the lot," which is, and he's like, "Oh, I thought I'd be closer to the offices." Like, no, that's for VIPs. Sorry, buddy. So kind of just stabbing him in the back and then twisting the blade there. And then we find out that he's been waiting for a while, and one of the assistants, who happens to be a story analyst, compliments him on his script, and then I'll throw this to you because this is a good line that you can utter, because it has also some meta commentary on this script. But what does this intern say about Sure Shot to Alec's efforts?
Of course. So after the assistant praises the script to Alec, which gets his attention and makes him much more willing to talk to this person, right before the meeting starts, the assistant goes, "For what it's worth, I think it's great for a first draft." This is not a first draft. This is, as from Alec's perspective, this is a multiple draft in, ready to shoot script.
Right.
Maybe get some notes from some stakeholders, but otherwise, this puppy's ready to go.
Yeah.
And what's
And it's
funny
a
is we
stinging
still
remark.
don't.
Yeah.
I wish we had gotten more about what it's about, because
Yeah.
we get a breakdown where he's having an argument with a producer. And this producer, by the way, is like, when Karen gets him this meeting, the way it's worded, what we find out is that this producer named Schilling, right, also had his big break producing their original script that him and Tom had done years back. So that launched this producer and the two actors. The difference is the producer went on to continue to produce more successful movies. Tom went on to do entertaining butts in seat movies, and Alec went for, meaningful, impactful art. And so he's been left behind. And they get into the meta discussion about the importance of commercial versus artistic, with Alec just going into angry monologuing almost about how he hates hearing commercial, that it should be about the art.
It should be.
Crazy.
But what's crazy is that all the people outside of Hollywood that he interacts with loves the movies that Alec is in. So it makes me feel like, oh, his movies may be art, but they're commercial. And then the stuff that he's pitching to Schilling and some of the other producers, they're just like, well, it's a mess. It's crazy. It's all you got Deus Ex Machina and stuff. And I think the script that he's doing, like, because it's still in the first act. Like Schilling says, it kicks off with a videotape. It comes out of nowhere. Machina. It's a Deus Ex Machina. So this is more meta with regards to the script. Yeah, there's a car chase.
Is fun. Everybody dies.
Everybody dies. It's a real downer. And then Alec's like, it's a satire, and everyone doesn't die. Maurice lives, and we're like, well, okay, so Maurice is a character, and like Schilling thinks, okay, well, that guy's the villain. He's like, he's not the villain. He says, and I quote, "The capitalist system that rewards unchecked greed and ambition is the American dream is," and it's like, oh, okay, so he's one of those types of
arrogant,
pseudo arrogant
film school
guys.
It's not Alec. It's subtle, but it's there. I guess I could underline it to make it easier.
And easier read.
Like, hey, you plebeian, do you not understand my sophisticated, undercurrents?
Yes.
Which, by the way, not probably the way you would want to talk to a producer you're asking money from.
Oh, exactly. The other part too is, where we get the sense that the script Alec has written is essentially the script we're also reading. Like, that's what this writer is trying to imply. And it's like, okay, so it's very self-reflective within its own meta commentary, but it's also it's also incredibly pretentious. And aside from it plucking certain superficial aspects of David Lynch and a little bit of the Coen brothers. It's also got a little bit of The Player in there, like the Tim Robbins film, where you've got, which is also a satire, but also jokingly referred to as a fairly accurate portrayal of Hollywood during the mid '90s.
Yeah, I do like The Player. I
I
like
liked
The
it a lot too.
Player. I liked Swimming with Sharks. As again, at the time, they did it with the appropriate levels of budget for each movie. Although I think The Player may have actually been a commercial failure in theaters and made it more of its money ancillary at the time, because I think it had a fairly big name director did that one.
Yeah,
The
the
Player was 92 and it was Robert Altman. Yeah,
yeah,
so it was so that's why it got as much of a budget as it did. I mean, we were in that era. This was right before the $20 million stars really
took
took
off.
over.
Yep.
Because if it was released in 92, it was probably produced and filmed over either 90, 91 ish. So this was right before Jim Carrey, Schwarzenegger started getting 20 million a movie. 92 would have been T2.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that was famously where he got about that much, and they broke it down by word, and he was the highest paid actor by word of all time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
think.
was, and this was also in the highlight of where if you were a screenwriter at the turn of the '80s to the '90s and you wrote a decent enough script, it would be a default purchase for $1 million, which at the time was crazy stupid because on average you would be selling a script for maybe a couple hundred grand if it was deemed pretty good, and if it was great is when you get the bidding war where you could surpass $1 million or so. But in The Player, and
Uh,
at that point, they just casually say, "Yeah, we'll buy the script for $1 million." It's so casual that it shows you that they don't really care with regards to the budget of what's going on. It's a little it's a little foreshadowing of the abuse of what some of these producers and executives are spending because it's not their money; it's the company's money.
yeah, so The Player was good, and then Swimming with Sharks was a good commentary. I mean, it was a hyper,
Hmm.
situational one, but on the indie kind of production scene
Yeah.
with I believe again, this is another one where I if I remember correctly from that era, that Kevin Spacey's character was an amalgam of Weinstein and Rudin,
Hmm.
and what's his name that was playing the assistant to Spacey, Frank Wally, was that his name?
Think so.
No.
Yeah. Well, the another film that comes to mind is What Just Happened with Robert De Niro. That also
Yeah.
deals with the Hollywood, the premiere, the the desperation, the static nature, the status nature between people and how it can like go up and down in a pinch, um, and it also does the same thing that is actually mentioned in this script. So Alec has a line that says, "Entertainment, just entertainment for entertainment's sake, enforces an audience's worldview, and it lulls them to sleep." And then he argues that art challenges it. It makes them wake. It makes them wake up. And and there's an error. There's an air of truth into that, but it's done at such a basic level that it misses the entire nuance of what it's supposed to be.
I take
Because
back. In Swimming with Sharks, it was Joel Silver. He
Joel
was Mark
Silver, right?
Lefter. Yeah, who's another one of the mm, mega producers who's left over. But one thing I'll say from when you're looking at writing one of the scripts, do it. So you better make sure you write it in a way that can be filmed cheap, because anybody who's using a critical analysis on what you get as a return on investment on movies that are inside baseball about Hollywood is that they, generally speaking, return very low.
Yeah,
You're these movies are niche, and
there.
they like you can give La La Land all the people aren't buying it tickets to it.
Oh gosh, like what was it? Alec Baldwin and God, Matthew Broderick were in a movie about that was based off a real story, but it was about the insides of Hollywood as well. Entertaining film, but again, niche. Didn't do much. I think maybe Get Shorty might have been a little bit on the more mainstream side.
I think Get Shorty might be the most successful, but that was sold as the fish out of water comedy,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, I think, being a Hollywood movie. It was
Yeah.
more about, hey, you've got a New Jersey, New York loan shark going to Hollywood and dealing with producers and that owe him money. And it had a stellar, like Gene Hackman was great in that.
Mm-hmm.
Rene Russo was great in that. So that was also, John Travolta has done very well in comedy, which is people sleep on. But you might think they were stupid movies, but the Look Who's Talking ones
Mm-hmm.
made a lot of money.
They
So
did. Uh,
and Travolta, yeah, Travolta was solid in kind of comedic, like Get Shorty, and then the sequel, which was
Be Cool.
that one was about yeah, Be Cool, which was about music. That was just a little too that of The Rock, and
Yeah.
so it's still funny, but not. I mean, it didn't hit at the same time.
No,
So,
it didn't. But
but that's
again,
that's probably the peak. But that was one you could sell where it wasn't being sold as a Hollywood insider movie. It was being sold as the fish out of water comedy.
yeah. Oh
With
yeah.
Chili Palmer coming in the I still
Yeah.
remember like the trailer voiceover, like talking about it and having those funny things. Like when he throws Tony Soprano down the stairs. He's like, he's a good stuntman. He made that look real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think John Travolta got his chops kind of
On Cotter.
on Welcome Back, Kotter. Like that's where he kind of got his comedy legs and those muscles kind of worked out, and then he went into far more serious stuff like right away. But it would always every once in a while pop back into comedy.
Which was good for him. I still even like was it The Experts, that movie, the weird movie from the 80s where he was training Russian spies in a fake town.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So
but this, yeah, so the meta commentary the writer works. You're right. This is clearly a defense of their own script within the script. Like the general audiences might get it, but I'm telling them because when the whole thing about it, the American problem, and that's exact because if you once we get later into the movie, they do get all those trappings of fame, money, wealth, and it's apparently not enough, and it haunts them. So it is such a meta commentary trying to defend your own message. You're like, I'm gonna spell out what my this is the underline.
yeah.
He's like, I'll underline the message for the audience so that they can get it.
Uh, I mean, and the other part too is they have a counter to that. They actually have who's supposed to be in the Macduff position named Aaron Kev, and he's an actor, writer, director. He's younger. He's got fame and fortune to him, and he's trying to be complimentary to Alec, but he's basically the one guy who Alec is trying to entertain the idea of like, okay, well, if I meet with him, maybe I can get my movie made. But what ends up happening is that he's basically told in no uncertain terms that the only way your sure shot script is going to be made is if you get Tom to sign on. And that's kind of what kicks off. That's the inciting incident essentially, or the new inciting incident, because we have a whole bunch of these actions that are stepping stones to getting to this point. But they are abstract. I guess abstract would be the best way to put it. Like they're there, and you're like, well, okay, well, how does this play into it? And then eventually, we get the payoff for it, but truth be told, like the car accident to him going to the house to call the police or call a tow truck is very divorced from what's going on set for the Julius Caesar reboot with Tom and then his co-star overdosing and then having to get Alec. Like it starts from that point. Like that's where this story kind of really starts. The accident beforehand, I think it's supposed to be a form of foreshadowing, but it's very It doesn't
yeah,
kind
I
of fall
think
in line. Yeah.
if you wanted to make the movie a little more coherent, you start on the set of the Caesar movie.
Yeah.
You have the actor overdose. You do go to the Entertainment Tonight exposition dump, and then you cut. And instead of making it like in this context, it completely flips it from a Lynchian thing to making it a daylight accident where this down on your luck guy gets kind of hit and ran
Hmm.
and is going in to do this stuff, and he's and have it going all where he meets the same people, they have him do the speech, and then his phone rings
Yeah.
and he looks on caller ID because phones had caller ID. Then you just see the name Karen, and then you cut back to the set with him there. You don't show the phone call. You then cut back to the scene like they do in the script where he's playing Brutus. I feel like even though you're now introducing Alex second out of the leads,
Out of the
it
lead.
fits better. It fits better narratively.
Hmm.
If you all you have to do is just move those scenes opposite each other from where they are now.
Pretty much like a little bit of shuffling could actually do the script a little better service for that, um, especially if you just kind of rework a little bit of the opening, because it's all like, again, they spend a whole page just saying like, oh, we have this ribbon of a highway going down into the valley of Hollywood, and this car is kind of speeding on, and all of a sudden this other one kind of comes the opposite direction and causes an accident that's mild for Alec, but the truck flips open and a Portuguese guy comes out and he says in Portuguese, "There's evil this way," and you're like, yeah, that's kind of on the nose there.
Yeah, I know it makes it less of like a Macbeth MacGuffin
Yeah,
by swapping it around and maybe just I would just make it a giant rock hitting his shield.
yeah,
Yeah, just completely take the Portuguese guy out of it. Just have like a truck drives by him on the highway, kicks up a rock,
yeah.
and makes a giant crack. And maybe even it goes like, and then it's not the only rock. Another one give
It's
him
just
his
kind of
little head
spiders.
bleed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because what you're doing is without having to spend time verbally, this guy is clearly down on his luck. You're showing that the universe is down on him.
Is down on
Yeah,
him. And
yeah. You don't have to spend any precious words doing it.
no, and again, if you wanted to establish the tone of the film that you're trying to tell, you wouldn't just have one stone or two stone or three stone. You just have, it's just constantly barraging him, and he can't change lanes to get ahead of or outside of that part. So,
Maybe it's like one of those work trucks you're not supposed to follow too closely, and it's just crack, crack,
and
crack,
it's just
crack.
crack, it's just kicking up like a dozen stones every 60 seconds. And by the time he gets, and then you have the joke, which is instead of having the accident, you have the phone call that's Karen, and then you have him driving up to the studio lot, and it's like Ace Ventura. Like it's a miracle that he can see through that thing, but he doesn't stick his head out the side of the window to drive.
Yeah, and again, this way you can because I always lean if you can do something with visual storytelling.
Hmm.
This is a visual medium. Lean into it. It works better. And that's a visual way to get your same message across. I guess whatever Beth story they were going for with the people that he was running into, the evil and
Hmm.
the premonition. Look, this script is so loose on the Macbeth stuff. I wouldn't feel married to trying to make sure I'm keeping these elements.
Yeah, I mean,
I would even,
essentially,
yeah,
she's
I would
going for
also
tone.
go, yeah, I would go a step further. I would then completely cut out the conversation with the producer about his script.
Hmm.
Make that a conversation between him and Karen.
Yeah,
Make Karen, again, if you're doing the Lady Macbeth thing, after they have their relations, when she says, and have her say specifically, look, I got you this job. You're on set with Tom again. If you get him to agree to be in your script, it will get made. Make that happen.
yeah, that's your goal. This entire production is your goal
Yeah.
is to get Tom to sign on to your script.
Like you give her that agency where she's bossing him.
Hmm.
we're making, so we streamline the script and we give it back to Karen to make her a springboard into action, right? Like I am the one who got you this job. I am telling you to go hang out with Tom or do whatever you need to do to mend your fences so that you can give him this script, because if he agrees to star in it, you're golden. It will get
Exactly.
made. It will get made with a budget, and you will be back moving forward. And she can be the Lady Macbeth whispering in his ears, like, you do this one with Tom, it will be successful. You can write your own check. I will be able to get you this other stuff away from him next time, but we need to rebuild your reputation.
Yeah,
Like,
like
make her. I like the idea of making her the
making
one
her.
who's pushing her and pushing it.
Yeah, and it can also play into the relationships. Like she's representing Tom, and she's like, the only thing I can show him the script all I want, but he still has to do it at the end of the day. I can't just tell him he's doing it because he is too big of a star. But if you convince him, then I can seal the deal, and then that's our golden ticket to a higher profile films, lots more creative control, all the things that you, Alec, deserve because you are the talent. Like those
Now,
are the cool seductive, yeah.
if they really wanted to push the envelope and show this and be a little more accurate about being feminine wiles, they would have her doing it while having
Yeah.
really emphasize that she's using all of her methods of influence to get him to agree. Like the most malleable the male female
hmm
is in that situation, right? There's a reason Mata Hari was a well-known spy, right? So
Yes.
this is, and that's where I think if the script is trying to really do justice to the characters, don't be afraid to make her what people would feel like is a villain who was manipulative. Like Lady Macbeth was manipulative. She's known for being the most manipulative person in the history of theater.
And we get
Don't
very
try to do
close.
that.
We do get very close with that in this one. Well, not so much on the manipulative part, but on the evil part. We get close to that in this next sequence because
Yep.
Tom,
Yeah.
sorry, Alec drives up to Tom's house in the evening, and he's immediately let in. And Tom is kind of really dejected and kind of strung out on something. And we find out that Tom picked up a male prostitute, and they did a few lines of coke, and the male prostitute had a seizure of sorts and bled out in bed. And Tom's freaking out, and Alec. This is the first time Alec is learning that his friend Tom is gay, because this was I guess a close kept secret for Tom. And
Yeah, I mean, it is weird. It's in 2007. I suppose it would still be something. That's one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to necessarily make this a current year movie,
mhm,
because it becomes harder to justify a closeted star if they started, like if this was current year, that would mean if you roll back their start date, it would mean they would have been coming up as actors around the 20 teens,
mhm,
and it would be hard to argue that Tom, being who he was and being manipulative, wouldn't have been playing off being gay to try to get more parts and get more attention.
right, he'd be amping it up as
Yeah,
opposed to
so
20 years ago. You kind of play it a little bit closer to
yeah,
the chest.
it makes, in this context, it makes sense because he would have been coming up as an actor early mid '90s, getting his big break around '97 per the script.
hmm
So he would have been super closeted
Yeah, like Neil
as an
Patrick Harris in the 90s.
yeah, as an action lead,
hmm
especially. You would not have wanted to. I don't think anybody would argue that actors going for action lead roles would not have hidden their sexuality
Yeah.
in the '90s. It would, it's something where people, even somebody like me who maybe leans more conservative, wouldn't argue that's probably factually accurate. You're like, don't, yeah,
hmm
that makes perfect sense. It's not going to strain credulity that somebody would stay closeted in the mid '90s through the early O's as an action star.
As an absolutely.
Yeah,
Now,
so he is now, yeah, so basically his male prostitute he picked up has overdosed Tom has shown up on the scene. I mean, Alec has shown up on the scene. Tom doesn't know why he's there. Alec says, "I'm just being a friend. I was
And
just
he's
here to
hiding the
hang out
script in
with
his
you."
pocket so he doesn't see
Yep.
it.
Yeah, because he does at this moment. It would look bad. Um, then we get Karen finally arrives on this too, where we find out that she had a special like Tom no, Alec had been trying to call her and she was going straight to voicemail, but she has a special phone just for Tom to be able to call and reach her 24/7 no matter where.
Right.
And that's and so they're game planning what they can, like, what should we do? We find out um, that they were seen together at a place that where they were eating,
Mm-hmm.
and with all that going on, Karen comes up with the ultimate solution they should go to, which is to chop up the body, throw it in the ocean, and then clean up the crimes.
Exactly. And of course, get Alec to do the chopping.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. She where she just says, and this is a part where if you do the other stuff earlier in the script, it makes it even more believable that now she's just bossing
bossing them around. Yeah.
Alec and telling him what to do. Where she says, "Okay, Alec can do it."
Yeah. And of course, this stimulates a fight between Alec and Tom because Tom Tom doesn't want to go to this level. Alec refuses to cooperate and take orders from Tom, and they get into a fight, and where Alec pushes Tom down the stairs, and his head hits the marble floor, but he's still alive. And this is where Karen comes in, and she puts her hand on his forehead and then smacks his head multiple times into the tile, killing him. And
Yeah.
this is the most evil thing that she does. And then the script has her kind of walk back from being that vicious again.
But here's the weird thing. Right before that, Tom was being a very villainous person.
Mm-hmm.
He is now he's now responsible for the death of this tall boy, as they called him, because he gave this kid drugs. He then threatens to blackmail Karen, and use all his influence. Threatens Karen, saying that he's going to leave to Endeavor,
Yeah.
which is naming Endeavor and saying that that Karen was at CAA, super inside
But
baseball.
not CAA or not CAA is how it's done in there. It's like it's not even
Yeah,
trying.
yeah, and it was such a lame thing. Like, and that's the thing. Like, we're now, because of what it's saying, she wasn't doing it because of anything he said about Alec. She's doing it because of what he said about her and cutting her off.
Yeah.
And that way they can both be super guilty. But then they, I guess, so they then clean up all the stuff they had gotten to clean up the crime scene. So now it looks like there was a drug overdose and a murder with the. See, this is where things go a little
This is where I
funky to
was
me.
confused. Yeah, because we have confirmation that
Because
there's the drug overdose, and then I think it's suggested that Tom, while drugged up, fell down the stairs and died.
so this is where this is a problem, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just all right. So we get this all, by the way. We jump ahead a year
To the anniversary of
to
Tom's
the
passing.
anniversary of Tom Adair being found dead, and in this year, and this is where we get that he was found with this gay lover,
Hmm.
and and it looks like it was an overdose followed by an accidental death on his part, because the deaths times would be close enough that a coroner would probably just say they were basically simultaneous.
Yeah.
But with what we know from the script, no coroner. We've seen enough CSI now. We've seen enough. We've been educated enough as a populace, as a potential jury, to know that they should be able to look and see that she said he was still alive before she proceeded to crush his skull multiple times against the ground. This would be evident in an autopsy where they can see that the blunt force multiple, I should say, multiple blunt force trauma injury happened on the ground there, because there would be blood spray
Yep.
from that happening multiple times. It wouldn't be on the stairs. And they were like, are we saying that they were so lazy that the coroner was just like, peace out? It's an act, he fell down the stairs.
I mean, yeah.
Like
I
I
mean, what's funny is that I've only ever experienced that type of attitude in really small towns, where they're like, we just don't have the money or resources to do it, so we're just going to go with the exact simplest solution possible. And if nobody stirs the pot, we just write it off and then we move on with our day.
and I would be venturing a guess that the LA Sheriff's Department and LAPD would be super meticulous when it comes to the death of one of the leading men in Hollywood, especially when you factor in that this overdose of this other guy, this kid, would have happened a mere 3 or 4 days after the overdose
Of California
on set
Michaels.
of California, where I mean
And it's the
clearly
same drugs that, and they'd be looking for the
we
dealer who cut it.
yeah we have a nexus, right? That's what they
Mhm.
would call it in an investigate. We have a nexus connecting two overdose deaths. And if you're now in I'm just gonna, even if you take away the fact that they're not looking at the murder part, we would be worried that there'd be a strain of tainted drugs that is in upper echelons of Hollywood.
Yes.
That would immediately get the LAPD working all sorts of overtime to see what's going on, who's distributing it. Like, we're going to start pulling everything. We're going to look if there's security cameras. We're going to pull all the footage. We're going to see if anybody else was there. We're going to do testing for fingerprints and DNA. Yeah,
They're
like,
gonna do everything, and then on top of that, like it would say, okay, if we have a set of tainted cocaine throughout LA County, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make aware of it, and then all of these actors and various other studio execs and celebrities will be sending their personal assistants to hand over the cocaine, so, so that they would be the ones
yeah.
in trouble for possession of drugs, and of course giving some distance between them and the execs, because many of them would probably flush it, but you'll get a couple that'd be like, okay, turn it over to the police and give them the name that we got it from, so we can like burn this guy who's tainting our drugs. And
Yeah, because if we had the person script, we know that it's a drug dealer named Vin.
yes,
And if you've now had two, hot, as they would say, drug supplies got in and were killing people, Hollywood is not a squeaky clean community, but they are money driven and results driven.
yes.
And if there is a drug dealer who is giving out merch that is killing their cash cows and threatening their livelihoods, they are not going to stand on ceremony to keep this guy from getting arrested.
No,
They will be turning
there'd
on
be a
him
statewide
immediately.
manhunt.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You don't have to be like an insider and play inside baseball in Hollywood to know that when these kinds of are on the, they are not gonna like care about burning a drug connection because this guy is already now proven he's dangerous, right? If you want a real world in a hostage situation, as soon as the hostage taker sh- shows they will kill a hostage, is when the SWAT team is willing to use lethal force to take the person down
Right.
because they are now a threat to human life. This drug dealer has shut down a movie set and killed a major actor,
Two
and
major
is now
actors.
in and is basically indirectly responsible for killing one of the biggest movie stars in Hollywood to boot now.
Right.
They are gonna get this guy immediately. And he shows up again later in the script, so no, they didn't.
uh,
Yeah, which is, so we get the one year later, and I'm gonna kind of summarize. We get what, which is, so we're cutting, and we find out that Karen and Alec not only have not been caught, but within the span of 1 year have become super wealthy and famous and successful, running a foundation in the name of Tom Adair that is focused on LGBTQ rights
Yep. And representation.
and representation, and they've been celebrated. They are, and then we get a bit of bad proofreading section where it sounds like he's going on Larry King, but they keep replacing Larry's name with Joy,
Yes,
and
and
then
describing
occasionally
her as a
saying,
Barbara Walters type or Larry King
yeah,
type.
yeah, and then they will have segments where they call where the person turns back to Larry King, and the format is described like Larry King.
Yes.
Where if you people, if for those of us not old enough to remember, Larry King had a famous talk show, it ran on CNN,
Hmm.
where he, in addition to interviewing people, he would actually take live callers who would get to ask questions. It was very radio, like Larry King started on radio, if I
Yeah,
remember.
it was a radio show format, but on live
Yeah,
television. Yeah.
yeah, and he was got big ratings, got big interview, and so this is where we get the next phase of the movie where a caller calls in and is talking to Alec and says that they are, that Tom Adair's ghost speaks to them, and he was murdered, and he knows that Alec did it. And allegedly, this sets off Alex seeing Tom's ghost, but then we get references that maybe he'd been seeing Tom's ghost longer than that.
Yeah.
The script is very wishy-washy about the timeline of when the ghost starts showing up to haunt him.
Yeah, and
Because
Tom's
we
described
also
as
find out that Karen apparently has been even.
been seeing him too,
Yeah.
and also that Alex been taking like some pills. We don't know what type of pills, but they're apparently like to calm him down, and also he's got sleeping pills uh, to go to bed. And this is where we get into a little bit of American Werewolf in London type of territory.
Where we
Because
have the ghost speaking to him.
yeah, where Tom, the ghost of Tom, is speaking to him in antagonistic ways. Uh,
Through quotes from his movies, through, yeah. But right after we do get it, we immediately get was faking it.
oh yeah, that
That he,
Billy. Yeah,
yeah, that it was a friend of Billy being Tom Adair's younger, very briefly, and it's his friend named Luis who is apparently doing a very Tom Adair impression,
yeah.
and they're doing it because Billy is convinced, because he knew his brother, that these guys were involved in it.
And then on top of that, we've also find out that both Alec and Karen were the executors to Tom's estate instead of anything going to next of kin, which would be Billy and the family.
Yep, and they made themselves the head of the foundation,
Well,
and
they started the foundation and then made themselves the head, and this is extra cash flow coming in for Alec and Karen. And Alex currently in the works of getting Sure Shot put together now.
yeah.
But he just did this movie called Invulnerable where he's a spy and he's on the circuit promoting that.
See, this is the weird thing to me. Knowing Hollywood productions,
Hmm.
we are 1 year out from when this event happened. Script tells us that.
Yep.
Within the span of that year, they were capable of apparently siphoning off Tom's fortune, creating the foundation, making themselves the head of the foundation, booking this movie Invincible or Invulnerable or whatever it was called,
Hmm.
going and shooting that movie, having all of post production completed on that movie, and him promoting it. That seems really quick
Yeah, I
for
think.
turnaround time, because just the foundation part, you're not going to be doing that. Like, that takes a lot of time and energy to create one of those and get them up and running, creating a board, doing the meetings, getting the stuff signed off on.
It does take a lot of time, but J.J. Abrams' wife did it with the Time's Up movement. Um, she got that up and running in months. Uh,
Um,
so
if you're conspiratorial, like you may lean thinking they had that ready to stand up and spin up even earlier. But just
Exactly.
saying, so yeah, the way they imply that this movie would be a big budget actioner,
Hmm.
that I mean, this would have been even in 2007. It would be rare to be able to because with the way visual effects were done then, even by then, I don't think we're probably talking about an 8 month from beginning of the shoot to release date would have been a very realistic turnaround time. I'm thinking it would have taken a little bit long.
It depends. I mean, if it's a practical effects film, they could do it in 8 months. I'm thinking that there's a page or two missing from the script because we learn in the first act that when they have to push everything back a month for the insurance after California Michael dies, that Tom has a commitment to another project, and I'm wondering if that other project was this Invulnerable script that was going to go in production, and then Alec was able to step in and
See,
take.
that would have helped cleared it up.
Yeah,
Just
I think that's what it
if
should
they
have
had
been.
named it. And maybe the writer has that in there, which is fine.
Hmm.
On their little Bible of what actually is happening in this world. Add a line in there, like Tom says, "I'm starting my shoot on
I've got my spy movie coming out.
my spy movie coming up," and then in that, what's really great is that actually again we're moving the agency from like back to Karen. It
Yeah,
would be implied that she immediately slotted Alec right in there for that company, for that studio.
yeah.
Like, hey, if you wanted to honor Tom, we'll keep the movie going. You would put his best friend in. Like that's it makes her and again lean into
It's
her
like the
being Lady
Heath
Macbeth.
Ledger tragedy of Dr. Parnassus, right? Like all these other actors that some of them were close friends of Heath that came in to pick up where he left off, and then others were just talented people that came in to be other variations of that character. That's what that's what you could echo to sort of elevate Alec's character to justify, yeah, in this 1 year turnaround, he started this foundation and he's now leading. Was the star in this movie that was originally going to be Tom's.
Yeah. By the way, if I could get $1 for every time an instance the oh, the ivy.
Oh, you cut out just there for a second. I didn't even hear that.
Oh, I was gonna. You hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I was gonna say if I could get $1 for every time an Insider Hollywood movie mentioned the ivy, because our next set piece with Karen and Alec is them having a meal at the.
At the
And it's
Ivy.
like,
Yeah.
come on, guys. Like, come on. Might as well. You're gonna Wolfgang Puck show up, like 2007.
Yeah, something like that. Oh God. Um, I mean, once we get to this point here where we get the interview, you see him kind of on the press junk and he's going to all these parties. He's got everything around him that you would think is the actor's dream, and of course
He's got the assistant he can yell at.
he's got
He's
the
got all the
BMW.
trappings. He's
Yeah,
got the mansion.
he's got everything, and yet he still doesn't feel satisfied. But he's also feeling a little plagued by the ghost of Tom, and this is actually a story beat that's repeated like 5 or 6 times for the next 30-40 pages almost. Like it doesn't. There's no
Yeah.
real escalation. It just kind of just lingers here for a while.
I would compare it to treading water. Like
Yeah.
we're just treading water, and I think what the writer is trying to do is having the slow ratcheting up of the haunting, where you start seeing more and more visible indications of Tom's ghost
Yeah.
haunting Alec. And but it's just kind of boring and redundant.
It
And
yeah. It really
it just
does.
oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna point out like it's really just okay. We've done the one interview. We get the application of Tom. We do another interview. We get a ghost of Tom. then have this through line of someone is sending him VHS tapes that say "Play Me," and when he puts them in there, there's various footage cut together between Alec and Tom, behind the scenes footage or stuff from the movie Catching Hell that they did, and even some of the dailies from the Brutus Julius Caesar film, and these all kind of get under Alec's skin, and he's kind of withering away, but at the same time, so is Karen. But we're not getting enough on Karen to, like, it's not in balance right now, because we should be, just like within the play Macbeth, you kind of see the obsession that Lady Macbeth falls deeper and deeper into to trying to maintain the status quo that she has achieved with her husband.
That's where I don't like how they did the Karen spiral,
Yeah.
because it seems, again, they're trying to, I think, recharacterize her away from traditional Lady Mac.
Well, yeah, they're trying to make her more distinct,
Yeah, which is,
and they're doing so at the expense of making her evil.
see, and that's where I would, again, I've said it now several times. I would have just leaned into making her a purely manipulative evil character,
Mm-hmm.
because if you want your through line for Macbeth, doing the witches and the mystical and the other stuff, that's the stuff that becomes more problematic, including. But the Lady Macbeth character, a full on narcissistic villainess, is something that is ripe of this time to take advantage of.
Yeah, and
We all watched the Depp trial. Like,
yep,
we've seen Amber Heard. We're more aware than ever type
uh,
of personality.
and then
Lean into it.
and then on top of that, you made her an agent. I mean, that speaks volumes on levels of manipulation and desperation and greed. Um, so yeah, like that. That's the other part too. Is we follow. I mean, for the tail end of this script, once we get to the 1 year time jump, nothing really of note happens, because we're just seeing all these impressive parties and these events and the examples of the wealth that Alec has garnered over the year. But it's still, he's reacting to it all in the same way. It's not satisfying. It's not depressing. He's maybe trying to get. He's kind of breaks down during late night talk show, going after someone who might have been in the audience when he's thinking it's Tom, and then he kind of passes out and he goes to the hospital. And then as a result of that, Schilling and the rest of the studio have said, yeah, your Sure Shot movie, we're just not as confident in it right now as we were, because, in the tabloids and in the trades, which we don't read, by the way, yeah, right, they say that you're off kilter, and we're only, like, your movie's only going to be as strong as your reputation, and right now your reputation is compromised. And that's your mid-act turning point, as it were.
Yeah, we get a lot of, like you said, treading the water till we can finally get what I guess is really the starting to pull the thread to unravel the new life,
Mm-hmm.
and which is where we start getting escalating consequences but it's just boring. It's just,
Well, because it's mostly exposition at this point. Like, it's not a whole lot of character work as you'd expect it to be. The writer doesn't really do the best job trying to hide that what they're doing underneath it all. It's really just going from one point to another. We have the one scene where we meet Vin for the first time, and it's just so that he can get more pills to kind of sleep throughout the day, or sleep through the night. And
I think, yeah, if you had the encounter with Vin, I was hoping for something more akin to what you get if you're watching Boogie Nights, when you,
yeah,
like, I want a out of control, batshit crazy drug dealer dancing to, like, Sister Christian, like, throwing down, like, that's the kind of scene where it would, if you want to escalate this, like, the haunting and the craziness.
Mm-hmm.
Do something like that where you're putting real world pressure in addition to the psychological trauma pressure he's feeling. Make like make it, and you're like you want to turn the screws from all directions. You've got the part about the pulling the movie,
Mm-hmm.
make it so the drug dealer is putting pressure on him and trying to like, you need these pills, I need X, Y, or Z. Like do I own you now, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like,
Where
oh, you need these
he's
pills? Well, I got this movie idea. How about you help me get it produced? Because then
exactly
that's still
like,
within the Hollywood
oh,
zeitgeist, I think.
and it's a great twist on him going to Tom's house with the script,
Yep.
where like he pulls a script out of his jacket pocket.
Or like it's his home, so he pulls it out of like the table underneath his mirrored. Um, yeah, he has a mirrored coffee table and it's got a little drawer in there. He pulls out the drawer. And it's like, I've got this script, and he slaps it down right next to the Coke that's lined up there. And he's like, if you want those pills, you got to promise me you're going to produce this. And it's 50-50 because I don't want anyone stealing it. Which again, very there is for a lot of people who've never written in Hollywood or interact with Hollywood, they do get a little paranoid thinking that their idea is so good that someone will steal it, when the people that have the money to make it would rather make money off of you than steal your work. It's the indies out there that don't have the money that are looking for that to make, because they can hoodwink some smaller financiers into getting it done.
So, and I would love it like so like to ramp up the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Vin's script is about a drug dealer whose famous Hollywood client overdosed, and
That would be good,
because
funny.
because it's a twist in the script that we were reading. Like they already make it so Vin is self-identifying as a character named Finn in his like pitch, so to
Yeah,
speak.
and it's just basically
But
like
have
crazy clients. Like you just see him and his crazy
yeah,
clients. Yeah.
but have like give the pitch something that is going to escalate, like because right now we know that he's dealing with escalating guilt over taking the life of Tom Adair, that not like murdering him specifically, but I mean
Yeah, taking his life.
taking the trappings, the glory, the money, the
Mm-hmm.
fame. What happens if the like even though the drug dealer doesn't know it, he's like, this is a script about a drug dealer, one of his famous clients overdoses, he helps someone, helps the studio cover it up, and it's basically a Scarface style story of how he uses that to move up the system for fame and riches.
Yeah.
And that is just it's far enough away where it's something he would have, where he's not like blackmailing Alec, but it's close enough that it would just push him, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like like this is something this drug dealer would do, right? This is
Yeah.
what he thinks would like it's a Scarface story. It's like one of the all-time bad people in cinema.
Yeah.
Like this who I am? Like you want to, because I would see that I would, if you're gonna do like the inside instead of doing the argument earlier with the producer, because we could cut that out, you do, this is your way of giving that inside baseball, wink and a nod to the audience of what the script is about,
Mm-hmm.
where because if you go back with Scarface, that was an indictment of capitalism in the US and excesses within the US by way of you know drug dealing.
Yeah, drug dealing, ego, corruption, temptation,
Yeah,
all those things. Yeah, yeah.
the money, the power, but if but De Palma was kind of saying that drug dealing is illegal, but this is the same thing we do in every bit,
But oh
right?
yeah, but the
It's
methods are the same. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but the message is so. For this one, this would be the same. The writers trying to get the indictment of, if you want to indict the Hollywood system, you've now had Alec go knee deep into it, and now he's being presented with this drug dealer scumbag telling him that he views that as what he would do after after his mark dies, and to gain wealth and fame, and that's exactly what Alec did.
Yeah.
So is Alec now no better? He's now himself. It's just another way to push him as indict the chasing of fame, fortune, and excess. Be more subtle with it.
Be more subtle with it, but have the theme be front and center, right? That type of thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
I
Yeah, so go ahead.
Oh no, please go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then we get our next I guess the next place where action actually happens is what seems to me as a stand-in for the uh was it what's his name's old show, Arsenio Hall show.
Oh right, yeah, yeah. Standing for the center. Yeah, this is where he kind of breaks down.
Yeah, where he has another like full-on breakdown in front of cameras where he's seeing um Tom's ghost. Now, what's interesting is we still don't know Karen's there this time.
Hmm.
And later on we see that she sees the same ghost that he does.
Yes. That would be well, okay. So that actually happens when he's out of the hospital and he goes to Karen's house because
Yeah.
she's not
I just
answering. Yeah.
yeah, I just I don't know if like cuz I based on that at this point I would believe that Karen would be seeing the same thing at the Eddie Sanders show
Yeah.
that he is because they're saying that it's not a delusion, shared haunting. So, but she is still being more, trying to maintain the status quo. But he's now having like full on kind of breaking down.
Hmm.
We get now Tom Adair, who younger brother Billy is breaking into his home, his mansion, which this is another timeline thing that seems weird. It's a year later and they're just getting to do it. Like nothing has been moved in
Yeah.
his house. Everything's exactly where it was. The police did no investigation, apparently. And so when he plays a tape that was in, because this is again because of the two setting in 2007, he presses play on a VCR in the bedroom,
Hmm.
and it turns out it's linked to a recording system in the bedroom because now we get even more evidence that Tom Air was a sleazeball, that he surreptitiously,
He
secretly,
secretly would film.
re- like his conquests with his gay lovers. And the last recording, which has never been touched up for an entire year, good job, police,
Hmm.
is now showing the crime scene.
Showing that
And
Alec
it,
and Karen were there.
it shows Alec and Karen because even though the video is capturing just the bed, the audio picks up the scuffle and fight and verbal arguments that
Altercations.
they were
Yeah.
having. So he now has the evidence to take down Karen and Alec. So at least something happened. This is like, oh, I was in like we had something to actually really move the story.
Yeah, this would be considered this would be the proper mid-act turning point, which is that evidence has revealed itself to Billy so that he could get his brother's estate back in his name and take everything away from Alec and Karen. And essentially like he ends up breaking into Alec's house to kind of present this as blackmail, and they get into a fight, and of course Alec pushes Billy through the window, and then he dies like on his patio in the backyard. And
So
that's when Alec goes after Karen because he needs her help.
yeah, this is where I would rearrange things again.
Hmm.
I would have um I would have Billy find this earlier, and for the audience to be aware he found it earlier. And so that way, because Alec was getting all these in videos where he was seeing Tom,
Yeah.
I would leave it ambiguous for a while if Billy was sending those to him as part of his plan to blackmail and torment him.
Yeah, I think that'd be more interesting of to follow because Yeah, the script doesn't really lay out in the second and first part of the third act who could be, like, are these tapes real or are they fake? Or, like, is it a delusion? Is someone actually breaking into his house and doing this? Could we have a better red herring of Billy being the one doing that? I think that would make that better.
Yeah, so that's what I would do. The whole second act for me would start with Billy finding this,
Mm-hmm.
and then you don't see Billy again. You just start seeing these clips showing up in Alex's zone, leading to and then the end of the second act should be the confrontation from Billy to Alec that he has the tape, not where he actually, in this case, pushes him out, but that way, in Alec's mind, he can start to think that it's Billy.
Right.
Have a little powwow with Karen, where she now also thinks that it's just all Billy, and they conspire to entrap him and get rid of him.
Yeah.
And then they find out that they're actually, after that is when they get the real haunting.
Yeah. The one that's like the shared one.
That after they kill, like, it's after they remove Billy from the equation without being caught, that they start both being truly haunted by the specter of Tom.
Yeah.
Like, now we go full ghost instead of just clips. We start seeing the ghost Tom showing up on things, because I think you give the characters a moment where they can breathe and think they've solved their problem, and then do the twist that they're truly being haunted for their crime.
Yeah, and you could have a really good one where you put Alec on a talk show, not like Arsenio, but maybe like, David Letterman or Jay Leno, and he's sitting in the chair, and where Ed McMahon is supposed to be, that's where Tom shows up, and both Alec and Karen see Tom in the seat next to him.
Yeah, and have him like first, and I would make him non-vocal at first,
Yeah.
and have it escalate to the point where he starts talking to them individually, and that spirals them both into their downward turn.
And that's where, like, Karen says cut to commercial, and you're like, why? It's
Yeah.
like, and then that's your clear way of telegraphing that she can see the Tom ghost as well. And then when they get back together and they say, wait, you saw him too? And that would make a better payoff because the next part after Billy is dead and Alec rushes to Karen's house, and he gets inside and he smells gasoline everywhere, and he finds her ripping up her clothes, like in her wardrobe, and trying to set it on fire. And then as they go through like the living room, Tom's on the armchair, and both of them see Tom and hear exactly what Tom's saying. And then, of course, she strikes a match, lights everything on fire, and of course, Alec kind of tries to get them out of the house. And that's where we're going to cut off for spoiler talk here, because there is like another 15 pages left of the script, and it does go off. But the ending is telegraphed because some of the meta commentary within the first act tells us that this is the ending of it. But I mean, yeah, this script has seeds of some good stuff, but it's superficial. It's so surface level. There's no depth to it. It's trying to be it's quite ironic, because it's trying to say that deep films, deep stories are art, but you have a writer that's not capable of giving us a deep story that could be qualified as art.
No, there we've discussed how you could rearrange things, cut things to, it's a good effort for a first draft.
Yeah.
But it's not there. Too inside, like, on the one hand, it's too inside baseball with what they're doing to be relatable.
Yep.
But if they change it, like, I get it, it's Macbeth. Change it a little bit, sell it as being a haunting and a horror. Just like we talked about how Get Shorty was very successful because it sold itself as a fish out of water comedy that just happened to be set in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
This one should be a horror thriller that just so happens to be set in Hollywood. Make Karen a villainess from the get go.
Yeah.
Make it so that like it's gonna be a horror movie. Follow horror movie rules. Make it so they deserve to be haunted and punished. Like
Yeah.
and that I don't want to fall back on Scream and be like cliched, but yeah, like Virgin lives and the other girl doesn't. You
Yes.
know, make it if you make it so Karen is more of a true villain, and we see that Tom went with greed and pride as original sins for going along with it, like Macbeth.
Yep.
They are deservedly punished now. Give them, switch it around so they think it's a real person just blackmailing them. Have them get that moment of relief thinking that is solved before it becomes a truly supernatural thriller. The audience will go along with that twist much better.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways to save this if you want to put the effort in. But right, I mean, as it is right now, um, it's a bit of a mess.
It's a bit of a mess. It's got some. I appreciate the potential take, but like I think that potential take is just it doesn't live up to its execution. I think she's drawing from too many other sources or movie examples of commentary on the Hollywood industry, and it's muddying up what she set out to do.
Yeah, I
And I don't
mean,
think she has the
it's
depth or experience to really understand what she's trying to accomplish either.
and it's a hard sell. Like
Hmm.
insider Hollywood movies are, they are harder and harder sell. If you're gonna make one, make it a good genre movie that just so happens to be set in Hollywood. I think that's my best advice because if you make Hollywood itself the star, your movie's gonna fail financially. Like you're it just
That's the habit, yeah.
that there it is a proven track record with occasional outliers that probably have, like I said, with Get Shorty as an example, have reasons where can you can explain away why that one money as opposed to others. But it's a niche movie. Make sure again, on the plus side, nothing in this script would have been outrageously expensive. It probably could be filmed on the very cheap
Hmm.
because we've basically just got people walking around sets. And if you don't have to do full dressing, if you just got people in a couple costumes occasionally, not an expensive thing to have to shoot.
Nope. And
You
in
know,
fact, you can do some interesting what's called rollover, where if there is a production going on the lot, you allocate your space to do your shoot, and you know for a fact that during that window, you're going to get people from other productions leaving the set to go to lunch or something, and you're going to get them in background, and then you make a deal with that other production to pay those backgrounders whatever you use in the final cut.
yeah, like say Gladiator 2 was doing some pickup shoots or something.
Yeah.
You would have said, "Hey, we just need to do a couple shots for our Julius Caesar set. We'll just rent your lunch break.
Yeah. I mean,
We'll just
listen,
have some second unit stuff over there."
every deal can be made to tighten up your budget. Um,
But realistically speaking, what I do like about the script is it doesn't look like an expensive shoot.
right.
We're talking about like studios, like what's supposed to be talk show sets, and then a couple larger interior spaces and houses. Not anything that's expensive to try to shoot. Like this could be done on a very low budget, which is where you're going to need to be to do a movie in Hollywood, guaranteed some money. So you keep this like because we know what streaming usually pays for some movie. I would say, and not that this would be a streaming only production, but I mean, you're at with a streaming service probably willing to put 5 to 10 million in for this kind of production. You could probably get it made and have a slight amount of profit for the production company,
Yeah.
on that budget. Probably a good amount, maybe a couple, depending on the actor, and walk away, right? And if you make some tweaks to the script, rearrange a few things, you could probably have a very solidly well received streaming movie. I don't know if it would. I don't know even with the changes if it would justify a movie though.
No, I don't think it. No, to put it into movie theaters would be a little bit too difficult, even if you're to tweak its shape to be a bit more coherent. But yeah, I mean, let's not wait any longer. So, final verdict on Turnover, Lil Chad. Is it a green light or a pass?
It's a pass.
Yeah, it's a pass for myself. It's to sum it up, it is literally the person punching above their weight class with an idea that has validity, but they don't have the experience, the knowledge, the ability to pull themselves out of it to execute it as effectively as what they have swirling around their head. It's outside of that, and I mean this this script placed 33rd, so it's in the top half of the preferred scripts from people in Hollywood, and I think it really only got there because it's got a very simple commentary on the industry that probably affirms a lot of notions that some of these producers have about the industry. Because again, a lot of the producers that vote on the blacklist, they aren't they're not all the big studio ones in the Hollywood suites, the C-suite stuff and stuff. These guys are mid-level. They're the ones that can get lots of stuff produced. There's a few that are on a bit more on the outskirts, on the independent side of things. So they're definitely in the ripe area of like, oh yeah, we got this movie about our industry and it's got a commentary on it, and they're looking deeper into it than what's actually there because they see, oh, it's a Shakespearean adaptation of Shakespeare's Macbeth, and it's used under the setting of the industry I know so well. So I'm going to have a favorable view of it before you even kind of get to the ending, and it has a little bit of a Lynchian ending to it, and But the thing is, it feels like a first year film screenwriting student put this together.
Yeah, I would like we've made our recommendations on how we could there's a little bit of potential there with some work to maybe get it filmable.
Mm-hmm.
I would say you give the tweaked, revised, corrected script to some like a producer like a Jason Blum.
Mm-hmm.
$5-6 million budget. Tell them this is something we want to target for you to just sell to a streamer, which you could. This is something where you could get some of those straight to video money kind of thing
Back in the day,
in the
yeah.
old days. And you know what? There is a very valid economic in that kind of movie.
Mm-hmm.
As long as like you keep this budget, where you're all in around 5-6 million, try to sell it to a streamer for anywhere from 8 to 10, you're gonna have profit.
Yeah,
That's what that's what the way indies work. Like you make it for that low budget, knowing that you're gonna sell it to a studio for a few million more than that, so you're making profit, and then let the studio take the risk on trying to gain more. For distribution. I mean, it's the Sundance model.
yeah.
We'll make the movie, we'll sell you the movie, it's all done, it's complete. We're selling you the movie, and then you have to do, P&A and actually release it and see what you make of it.
Yeah, and then there'll always be like little percentages back to the original, but mostly the people that buy it will get the majority. This definitely falls into that category. The other part too is the concept itself does have an air of possibility where it would definitely have it fit into the niche of movies about Hollywood, but it definitely have a little bit more to it because of the lessons that sometimes the fame and fortune that comes from Hollywood is never as satisfying as the desire for what it is. But yeah, like this is a pass for me as well. And let's check in now on the Patreon side of things. And for those listening out there, if you are a member of the Patreon, you can vote whether to greenlight or pass on the scripts that we talk about on the Saturday show. As I check in here, we actually have the audience at Patreon agree with you and I, Chad, that this is a pass for them. Now, unfortunately, we don't have anyone that made any comments to discuss on that, so we'll then head on over to the live side of the show, and we have a $5 donation from the Dead Man, who says, thanks a lot, script. Now I have total eclipse of the heart in my head.
Oh, that was a good one.
That is good. So thank you so much for that, the Dead Man. Always appreciated. But yeah, let's call it here. I mean, there was lots to talk about without getting into the spoilers. There's lots of things that I would consider first draft flaws, especially the vacillation between Joy and Larry King for that talk show, a call-in talk show segment. I'm shocked that it got as high as it did on the blacklist. That's a little troubling, but not.
That's. I was gonna ask. I was like that but you explained kind of what the reasoning was. 'Cause I can't see why this got as many votes as it did. It's such a rough draft of a script. Like
it is, and this is definitely something that. It's like it's like a writing sample, because as I mentioned at the start of the show, the writer for this script that placed on the blacklist, Elyse Hollander, she is one of the writers. She might even be the assignment writer for the sequel to Freakier Friday by Disney, which, I mean, I didn't have faith in the sequel anyways. Now I have even less.
Yeah, the trailer was definitely leaning purely into running gags from the first one that they were
reusing again. Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you look at the first Lindsay Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis Freaky Friday, it clearly had elements from the first movie in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely went its own way, made its own gags, really did its own thing.
Yeah.
This one as a sequel with a returning cast, and then having, it's just be multi-generational, but bringing the cast members seems like a recipe for just leaning on nostalgia and repeat gags. And that might be okay for maybe a few minutes, but it's going to get old fast.
Yeah, because it's an unenlightened derivative. Like, I mean, the only thing that they knew that they have is they have a third generation, and then it's 4 people instead of 2 swapping. Yeah, so that's it for the show right now. So please, Chad, tell everyone out there listening where they can find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, me and my co-host Slender Dad run a show called the Ascendant Art Podcast, which you can find here at YouTube. We do Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you guys could go over there and subscribe to the channel, that'd be wonderful. Sub numbers up so that we can hopefully possibly hit monetization eventually sometime soon. But we're around 322 right now, so we're a few hundred away. So I would really appreciate if we do a fun show every week. We've been having a lot of fun lately where we've been covering it since it started, Mobland.
Oh yeah,
which is a great new show, and we do full reviews and breakdowns of every episode, which I think we're the only show that's been doing the full breakdown. So,
I think you are, yeah. But you also have like the fun trivia for everyone to get involved with. There's a lot of good interactions there, yeah.
Yeah, we do kind of a fun, like, it's the end of the week. We look for if new big movies have come out, we'll do reviews on those. Last week, not this week, but the week before, I had a lot of arguing about defending Mission Impossible Final Reckoning as an enjoyable movie versus all comers, apparently. And I was one of the people who did not enjoy Lilo Stitch because of what it did badly compared to the first movie. Even though I was telling people after seeing it, it is probably going to make $1 billion because it has enough laughs that kids were just enjoying that it'll be fine. Like Stitch looked good on screen,
Hmm.
so it'll make money. But the script again, script. It all goes back to the script. Whoever wrote the script made some very poor choices compared to the original movie done. So I would that might be a fun bonus. Do a comparison on the choices that were made and why they're bad from a storytelling point, in my opinion. You have I don't know if you've
Oh, you just cut out there on my end. So,
oh
but yeah,
okay
well, yeah, definitely always entertaining ideas for additional
yeah
episodes and bonus types because, yeah, it's always just tricky getting everyone on the good schedule to do a bonus episode. Even the one that I have in the bank, I keep on meaning to schedule it, but then I keep on getting pulled away to do another project, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it all. I'll time it up for this morning, and as soon as I get in there, I get a call. It's like, oh, I got to rush down to do this. Okay, I'll go do that. And then I get back at the end of the night and I see this thing pending. It's like, oh, no, I'm not prepped for it anymore. It's going to be too close to when the Saturday show opens up. So I'm like, okay, I'll reset it again. And then I forget about it. So that's on me. I own that. But I'll be getting out that for the Patreons. And yeah, we'll be trying to get some more of that content in there. This is a big year right now for movie and film production. A lot bigger than last year and very much bigger than the year before, due to the strikes and just getting out of the pandemic. So yeah, fortunately, I'm being kept fairly busy here. So I'm doing my best to make sure I can balance that out. But that is why I love doing this show because so far so good. I've been able to corner out this evening for this show without any interruptions. So I want to keep it going as long as I can. I want to thank everyone out there that listens live and all those, of course, that listen on the replay. It's greatly appreciated because this is a very niche type of show talking about areas of the entertainment industry that's not often talked about anywhere on the internet, at least in this capacity. So I want to thank, of course, Lil Chad for returning for this week, and of course he'll be back soon as well. I want to thank everyone out there listening for supporting the show; it's greatly appreciated. And swing on by the same time next week when we review another screenplay, and hopefully it will be better than this double pass issue that we had tonight. So I want to wish everyone listening out there a wonderful weekend. And I really hope that we have a great script next week because remember, guys, when it comes to great story, it all starts with the script.